Hey everybody, this is Minion Soldier, and we are going to do a piracy show. Now, I have basically kind of re-recorded this episode multiple times. Originally, I tried to get this out on Saturday because the Q&A came out, and of course, I found out that I was in Wave 7 about an hour after I put out Friday's show, and I thought, oh god, man. But then by the time I kind of looked at it, I said, no, I'm not really satisfied with this episode. I had done a few different things with it, and I had kind of gone over the Q&A, and I liked what I saw in the Q&A. There was a few things, however, that kind of some of the questions kind of yikers. Like the one like, how will it handle an atmosphere? It's like, oh, it's going to handle clearly. It's going to handle like an F-15 because it's so aerodynamic. It's like, what kind of question is that? It's a brick, dude. How do you think it's going to fly? Uh, it's a cruise ship. I mean, come on. How do you think it's going to fly? Does it have VTOL? No, it just, it sits flat on the ground. Come on. So we're going to kind of get into this episode, and we're going to talk about the good things about the Kraken. All right. So there was a Q&A portion at the beginning of this video originally. But like I said, when I was kind of going through the Q&A, the questions were not good questions. They weren't really substantive. There wasn't really anything to them. It's like, does it have VTOL? Can you transfer cargo from the landing pad to the cargo bay to another ship on the cargo? It's like, what kind of questions are those? I mean, you might as well have asked, does it have doors? Are there warp drive engines on it? Does it have phasers and photon torpedoes? I mean, they were dumb questions. There were a few good ones, but most of the questions were like, come on. So I figured what I would do with this is, why do I think it's a solid ship? Now, straight up, I didn't buy it. I got the email that said I was in Wave 7, and I kind of looked at it and went, like, no. I have enough. And I'm not melting what I already have. The only thing that I really kind of looked at it and said, you know what this kind of changes my outlook on, is I thought, I've got the Reclaimer, but am I always going to be flying the Reclaimer? I do have some room. I do have some money on my account, and I've been kind of moving things around. I said, maybe I should, at the anniversary sale, maybe I should pick up a Vulture, because if I know somebody who has a Kraken, and they're just out there, maybe just when I feel like, it's sort of like when I'm flying the Cutlass, people are like, oh man, you own this, you own that, why are you flying the Cutlass? And it's because the Cutlass is convenient. The Cutlass works, and you can do kind of like one-man things in the Cutlass. Whereas if I'm out in a bigger ship, there's a lot more to manage there, and sometimes I just want to be chill zone, do my own thing. And, a smaller ship is more suitable for that. And so I thought, you know what, maybe I could kind of move some things around, get rid of some things that clearly I don't want anymore, and maybe get a Vulture. If I know somebody who has a Kraken, maybe that'll work out for me, right? And I can kind of use that as a base of operations. And that's where I kind of want to start off with, is what I like about the Kraken. What I think that the obvious value of this ship is. I'm going to start off from the pirate point of view. All right. So let's say somebody who's got a Kraken, and you're a pirate, and you're out there just like you're seeing on screen. You're out there on your Cutlass, and maybe you happen upon some poor, unfortunate caterpillar that's been blown up in deep space. You had nothing to do with it, but it happened. And, because you seem to find yourself in these situations frequently, you maybe don't have the best reputation with law enforcement in the area, whether it's Crusader, Hurston, whatever. But your associate who has the Kraken doesn't have a bad reputation. As far as law enforcement in the area is concerned, fairly pristine individual. So maybe they're not so, people aren't all that worried about them. And let's say that this person is parked off away from a planet, not too far with the quantum drive, but somewhere where they may not be immediately accessible, somewhere where they can't really be found without a deliberate search, something that's going to take some time to do. They're out there parked. You're out in your Cutlass, you're out in your Vulture, something like that. You happen upon a poor, unfortunate ship like this, and you go, you know what? I'm going to go in, I'm going to salvage this stuff. Don't have the best reputation, but I'm going to take it to the Kraken. That's kind of like my base of operations. I can drop off goods there, have them stored aboard the Kraken. Maybe the Kraken owner can then go and sell those things on for me whenever he gets all full up. I now have a base where I can repair, rearm, refuel, and I can handle all these transactions from a convenient location in space where I don't have to re-enter the atmosphere to dock, or I don't have to request docking permission as you normally would, and have to deal with kind of wandering through all these asteroids around Grim Hex and whoever may be hanging around there. I can go do my transactions off someplace where there aren't so many prying eyes, that sort of thing. The Kraken offers you that, right? The Kraken offers you access to that type of facility. So when you're flying around in these medium and light ships, like something like a Vulture, say, or a Cutlass, or even a Caterpillar, you can kind of handle these types of transactions. Now, I don't think that you can quite dock a Caterpillar directly. Well, I mean, through the docking port, maybe, if we do end up having the universal docking ports. But maybe not directly with a Caterpillar, but a lot of these light and medium ships could be handled off of a ship like this. And maybe that could give you access to places where people may not expect you to be, right? There's that possibility as well. And I mean, as long as the Kraken isn't directly observed having any dealings with you, maybe that's enough in terms of law enforcement and reputation for the Kraken pilot to be considered pristine. Now, there's a little bit of speculation there because we don't know how all these things are going to work out, but there's certainly an interesting possibility there that you could end up having a little place where the Cutlasses, the Vultures, the Heralds operate from, and they this is their little mini base of operations out there away from prying eyes. There's that obvious value there for the pirate player, or alleged pirate player. From an org perspective, let's say an associate of or a member of the org in a pirate organization has that facility out there for people. Maybe that's how the org generates money. Players go out in their Vultures, their Cutlasses, whatever. They earn up all these goods. They bring it back to the Kraken. The Kraken owner, who ends up being an officer, or maybe the owner of the org or whatever, collects up all these things, takes a reasonable cut out of these things when they go and they take them to wherever and sell them, right? And maybe that's how the pirate org makes its money. It seems like a reasonable assumption, I would say, to run things that way. And for a player, let's say a player like me, when I saw the Kraken and I looked at the possibilities there, having a Kraken around, either as an associate or as a member of the org, that didn't really make me say, oh, I want to get a Kraken too. It made me think, I do have that room on my account. I do have that little bit of liquid floating around on my account. When we talked about the glaive recently, and I thought, you know what? Maybe there are going to be certain times when I just want to do my own thing, right? When I just want to go out, chill by myself and play the game. I do own the Reclaimer, but the Reclaimer is kind of a heavy-handed ship. It's obviously there's going to be a lot involved in flying that thing. But maybe I just want to putz around with my friends, have a little fun on a cheaper ship, and I still want to do some salvage. Maybe I want to, when I saw that, I thought, you know what? Let's check the old Vulture box at the next anniversary sale, right? Because maybe I just kind of want to float around, do a little bit of salvage, and that's not going to be a very expensive ship. It's a one-man ship. something that's something that I can easily get, and I can just kind of do my own thing when I'm by myself, and I don't have to worry about managing a big ship, managing a crew, managing all these different systems. I just got my one little chill zone ship. I can put on some tunes and I can just go do my own thing, and I've got a nice little safe base of operations to operate from. The org makes a little profit off of that, and I get to go and just do my own thing, right? It's an enabler, and that's one of the things that I like about these bigger ships. Is certainly there are a lot of responsibilities in operating them, but they enable. I think they enable gameplay, and maybe, yeah, once again for the pirates, maybe it allows you to get out to places with those little chill zone ships that ordinarily you may not have access to, right? Now, from my reading of the Q&A, this is once again something that enabled it, because they were talking about docking ships on the Kraken. So let's say I had a Vulture. I go and I dock it on so-and-so's ship, and I log off. Then that person logs off. There's no one hidden aboard the ship, so the ship isn't stuck in space. That whole thing, maybe that's that'll definitely be a future video that we'll talk about. But I log off, and I log back in, but the Kraken player isn't there. So from my reading of it, my understanding was that, so what'll happen then is that you will simply respawn in your ship at that location where the Kraken was, right? That was my reading of it. So then I can just kind of go, oh, well, the Kraken player's off now, so I'll just go back to Grim Hex or wherever, park my ship, and then go do something else, or maybe just keep operating in the Vulture, but then having to deal with perhaps the inconvenience of having to take things to Grim Hex rather than just going and dropping it off where no one can see me, and I possibly don't run into other players as much, so I can kind of do whatever I got to do without having to worry about any kind of interference, right? So it's a great, enabler to have around. It's a great way for, let's say, during certain windows or certain times, the org can make certain money doing things this way, and then players can go off and do their own thing however they choose to when this ship isn't in operation, and it doesn't really impact you in any negative way. If you happen to log off on that ship, you respawn, and it's like the Kraken just dropped you and your ship off and then went off about its own business, right? So possibly a cool thing that we'll see, and it certainly gives you a location where if the Kraken pilot is smart and they're planning their ship in a place where they're not immediately something that can be found, where they're off on their own, maybe they can kind of warp around and cut off their quantum drives and find a more unique location where they can tuck that ship away, and maybe it's not something that people can find without a very deliberate search. Then I think that works out. Now, I think that that's a fairly reasonable scenario to guess at. But let's talk about legitimate players who are, I follow the letter of the law. I am not a rapscallion, sir. I am a good boy, and I don't do that sort of thing. What do you get from the Kraken? Well, you get a decent cargo ship. It's not an amazing cargo ship because it's not built primarily to be a cargo ship, but it's still a fairly reasonable cargo ship. You can travel in a convoy with other players who are also operating cargo ships. So let's say if you're a member of an org, or if we end up in a point, which I wonder if it's going to happen, where we end up in a point where players are, forming their own convoys. If there isn't a Discord channel for convoys in the Crusader system, it's like, oh, well, me and this other guy, we're all about to leave Hurston, and we're all about to fly all the way out to Microtech or wherever. It's going to be about 20 minutes, so we're all gathering together here, and we're all going to quantum together as a fleet. You can kind of show up there, and maybe, depending on how things work, maybe you've got a few friends who want to travel with you, and you just provide escort services for money. Or that sounded kind of bad, but you know what I mean. Or you end up, kind of doing the cargo run and just kind of helping these guys out, and people kind of wait for you to kind of make your cargo runs because they go along with you, because they know if they get interdicted, people might see, oh, hull C, oh, hull D, easy money maybe, and then all of a sudden, boom, a Kraken drops out with all these gun turrets, and it's deploying cutlasses or whatever, and all these lighter fighters and all this other stuff. And they're like, you know what? This isn't exactly the fight that I was looking for. Piracy is about profit. It's not about just getting your ship blown up. So I'll see you guys later, and they bug out. You know, there's that obvious value to it too. And those are two, I think, core ideas around this ship where I don't think that we're going too far down the speculation rabbit hole to say that these are two things that are immediately valuable. And certainly if you're a pirate and you're operating in an interdiction field on a known trade lane, and all of a sudden this thing drops on top of you, and let's say maybe you're just in a few buccaneers and a couple of cutlasses or something like that, you might look at this and go, yeah, that's a little bit more than I bargained for. And that shock value, just like, oh shit, let's just get out of here because it's a Kraken. We don't know how it's equipped. Maybe, you know, maybe that's enough, right? And that shock value, certainly it's not something that you can attach a metric to, which might trouble some uncreative individuals who need to see everything through the lens of metrics, but because it's an intangible, right? It's not something you can attach an easy numerical value to and say, oh, it's this. Because you never know, right, how the shock is going to impact a player, but oftentimes shock value has that negative impact. They might go, okay, whoa, this situation is automatically out of control. Maybe I just want to bug out. And that alone might be enough to kind of protect your fleet and might be a good enough reason to bring these things along. So as a cargo ship, you may not be the best, but you still may be highly prized in these kind of cargo operations. And maybe you can end up running a service where there is a fee attached to that. And you bring your friends along who have fighters or whatnot, or you hire fighter pilots and you offer that protection as people are traveling through space. I don't think that that's too much of a reach to say that's a possibility. That is a situation, that is a type of emergent gameplay that could arise from a ship like this. One of the things that I've always kind of laughed at, that there are certain people in the Star Citizen community that do, and you guys probably know this because I mention it every now and again, is the idea of, someone says, oh, well, I think I'm going to go out and fly in this ship and it's going to be pretty tough. And then someone says, oh, well, I'm just going to bring a retaliator and blow you up. And it's just like, now that we're starting to see the realistic distances, it's like, yeah, you'll bring a retaliator 20 minutes later, 30 minutes later. Good luck with that. Am I still going to be there? Am I still going to be just sitting there doing that thing, posing for you, waiting for you to show up with your retaliator, with your Polaris? Probably not. People always kind of use this, kind of rock, paper, scissors idea, and they go, well, if you bring this, I'm going to bring that. Yeah, do you know what you're going to need and be able to access it immediately when you need it? No, you don't. It's you roll the dice, and there is a very real distance aspect. Some people I've seen making posts saying, well, this is the great ship because it allows you to bring protection where it's needed, when it's needed. Yes and no. Because, yeah, you can bring the ship along with a fleet to offer protection, but if you think that the Kraken's going to be racing around a star system, dropping in like immediate, forces to, dissuade an enemy from attacking a lonely cargo ship or something like that, by the time the Kraken's gotten there, it's probably all said and done, right? At least if the thieves are even remotely proficient. So with that more distant example, I don't think that that's a realistic possibility, but bringing it along with the fleet in the first place, I think is a pretty reasonable expectation and a pretty good idea. So that is what I like about the Kraken. That is my expectations around the Kraken. I do not own one. I'm not buying one because I don't see the need for me to own one, and certainly having a Kraken attached to my name is probably more of a detriment than a positive. So I don't know. Maybe long-term in-game, it can be a goal. It could be a possibility. But when I saw the Kraken, what immediately came to mind is, I got some room on my account, and I was talking about the Glaive a little while ago. Maybe not the Glaive. but maybe a vulture.
Thank you for watching. So if you want to keep up with the latest and greatest in Star Citizen and Squadron 42's development, please follow us on our social media channels. See you soon.